Electric charges and field. This is the first chapter of NCERT Physics of class 12. This chapter I have divided in 4 parts. The first part, in which we will study about frictional electricity, properties of charges, Coulomb's law. Then we will discuss Coulomb's law in vector form and the superposition principle. So the first topic we will study is frictional electricity. Whenever two insulating bodies are rubbed against each other, some of the charges are transferred from one body to the other. Two particular insulating bodies, not any two insulating bodies, two particular insulating bodies are rubbed against each other. Some charges are transferred from one body to the other. Now we know that there are only two kinds of charges, positive and the negative charges. Only the electrons which are in the outermost shell, they can be transferred from one body to the other, not the positive charges. So, the body which gains electrons becomes negatively charged, and the body which loses electrons, it is in deficit of electrons, that becomes positively charged. And as the charges there remain at rest, so these type of charges are called as static charges. And this type of electricity so developed is called as the static electricity, or it may be termed as the frictional electricity, because this electricity is produced due to friction. So this type of electricity we call it as static electricity or frictional electricity. And the branch of physics in which we study about these static charges is called as electrostatics. So electrostatics is that branch of physics in which we study about static charges, that is the charges at rest. And the first two chapters of NCERT, the first one electric charges and field, and the second one electrostatic potential and capacitance, these two comes under this topic electrostatics. So the first two chapters are of electrostats. Let's take an example. When a glass rod is rubbed with a silk cloth, glass rod rubbed with a silk cloth, some of the electrons are transferred from the glass rod to the silk cloth. So, as the silk cloth has excess of electrons, so this becomes negatively charged, whereas the glass rod will acquire an equal amount of positive charge. So, this glass rod becomes positively charged. So, the body which gains electrons becomes negatively charged, and the body which loses electrons becomes positively charged. The other examples are when ebonite rod is rubbed with fur, the ebonite rod becomes positive, ebonite rod gets negative charge, whereas the fur gets positive charge. The same way, when a woolen carpet is rubbed with rubber shoes, the woolen carpet, it gets positive charge, whereas the rubber shoes acquire equal amount of negative charge. The same way, when a plastic comb is rubbed with dry hair, okay, take a plastic comb and rub it against the dry hair, you will see that the dry hair acquires positive charge, whereas the plastic comb, it acquires an equal amount of negative charge. So, the electrons are transferred from dry hair to the plastic comb. So, that is why the plastic comb gets negatively charged. It becomes negatively charged, whereas the dry hair will get an equal amount of positive charge. And as these charges remain at rest, we call these charges to be static charges. And the branch of physics which deals with the study of the static charges is called as electrostatics. So this is all about frictional electricity. As we know that the unit of charge is Coulomb. Unit of charge is Coulomb. We know that charge is written as, the formula for the charge is current into time. So its SI unit is ampere into second, which is taken as Coulomb in order to honor the scientist, and its dimensional formula, the dimensional formula for the charge is A ampere and T is time. So A into T is its dimensional formula. Now let's study some properties of charges which are very important. So the properties of charges. So here we are going to study 4 properties of charges. The first property is conservation of charge. The first property of the charge is conservation of charge, which states that in an isolated system. Now what is an isolated system? The system in which there can be a number of bodies but they can transfer charge to each other, but no charge can come from outside, or these bodies can transfer the charge to some outside body. So such a system we call it as an isolated system. In an isolated system, the total charge remains constant. This property we call it as conservation of charge. That is, the charge can neither be created nor it can be destroyed, only it can be transferred from one body to the other. Such a property we call it as conservation of charge. That is, the charge is conserved on an isolated system. Or you may say that summation of Q is equal to 0 on an isolated system. For example, let us take the example of glass rod and silk cloth. Before rubbing, the glass rod and the silk cloth both were neutral, and after rubbing, some of the electrons are transferred from glass to the silk cloth. Silk cloth acquires some negative charge, whereas the glass rod acquires an equal amount of positive charge. So in this whole system, the total charge remains constant. Such a property we call it as conservation of charge. The second property is quantization of charge, which states that the total charge on a body, charge we can represent it by capital Q or small q, the total charge on a body is integral multiple of basic unit of charge. That is, integer multiplied by the basic unit of charge. So mathematically it is written as Q is equal to N into E, where N is an integer. N is integer which is equal to plus minus 1, plus minus 2 and so on. And E is the basic unit of charge. Basic unit of charge means the charge on an electron or a proton, which is equal to 1.6 into 10 raised to the power minus 19 coulomb. So the basic unit of charge is taken as the charge on electron or proton. If it is electron, it will be minus 1.6 into 10 raised to the power minus 19 coulomb. And if it is proton, it will be plus 1.6 into 10 raised to the power minus 19 coulomb. So this property, which is mathematically written as Q is equal to N into E, that is, the charge on a body is integral multiple of basic unit of charge. This property is called as the quantization of charge. Hence it states that the charge cannot remain in fractions. It's only the integral multiple. Okay, but it is found that the charge can remain in fractions, E by 3, 2E by 3 and so on. But these are called as quarks and these are unstable. So we don't have to study about these quarks. We have to study only these are unstable, and again this will be converted into integral multiple. So Q is equal to N into E is the quantization of charge. The third property is additive property. As we know that the charge is a scalar quantity, so the total charge on a body is the algebraic sum of all the charges. We don't have to consider the direction. It has to be added or subtracted by simple algebraic operations. There are few charges, plus Q1, minus Q2, minus Q3, plus Q4. So the total charge will be equal to simple algebraic operations, that is plus Q1 minus Q2 minus Q3 plus Q4. So it is added or subtracted by simple algebraic operations. So this property we call it as additive property. So as the charge is a scalar quantity, we have to add or subtract by simple algebraic operations. The next property is like charges repel each other, whereas the unlike charges attract each other. Now like charges means same kind of charges. Two positively charged glass rods brought close to each other, we'll see that they will repel each other. Whereas the unlike charges, a charged glass rod which is positively charged and a charged ebonite rod which is negatively charged, when they are brought close to each other, we find that they attract each other. So the like charges repel, whereas the unlike charges attract each other. So these are the four properties of the charges. The first is conservation of charge. Second is quantization, Q is equal to N into E. The third is the additive property, simple added or subtracted by algebraic operations. And the fourth one is like charges repel, whereas the unlike charges attract each other. Okay, now there are two methods of charging a body. Any uncharged body can be charged by two methods. These two methods are, the first method is charging a body by conduction, and the second method is charging a body by induction. So these are the two methods to charge any uncharged body. So let's discuss the first method, charging by conduction. In this method, the charged body is brought in contact with the uncharged body and the charges are shared between them. Charging by conduction. Charging by conduction. In this, the charged body is brought in contact with the uncharged body and the uncharged body will get the similar kind of charge. If it is a positive charge, then the uncharged body will also be positively charged. If the charged body is negatively charged and it is brought in contact with the uncharged body, then the uncharged body will also get negatively charged, will also become negatively charged. So the same kind of charges are shared. For example, a negative charge ebonite rod which is having Q charge, minus Q charge, is brought in contact with any uncharged body. Now the charges on these two bodies, on the ebonite rod also it will become minus Q by 2 and on the uncharged body also it will become minus Q by 2. Whereas the second method is charging by induction. In charging by induction, the charged body is brought close to the uncharged body, not in contact with it. It is brought close to the uncharged body and the uncharged body will get opposite kind of charge. Let's take an example. This is the ebonite rod rubbed with fur. We know that it becomes negatively charged and it is brought close to a metallic sphere which is placed on an insulating stand. Okay, it is necessary that the stand should be insulating. Otherwise, if it is conducting stand, these charges which the uncharged body, this metallic sphere will acquire, it will flow into the earth. So that is why it should be placed on the insulating stand. Okay, so when the charged ebonite rod, the negatively charged rod is brought near to this metallic sphere, we know that due to the force of attraction, here the positive charges will accumulate and on the other side of the metallic sphere, negative charges. Okay, now in the second step, what is done? The outer side of this metallic sphere is grounded, is earthed. That is, our metallic wire is connected into the earth. So these negative charges will flow into the earth and here the negative charges will not be there. Why? Because they will flow into the earth. Now in the next step, what is done? First, the earthing wire is removed and then the negatively charged rod is removed. So what happens to this positive charge? This positive charge will be uniformly distributed on the metallic sphere and hence the metallic sphere will become positively charged. So in induction, the charged body is brought close to the uncharged body, not in contact, close to the uncharged body and the uncharged body will acquire opposite kind of charge. So this method we call it as charging by induction. So these are the two methods by which any uncharged body can be charged. Now the next topic is Coulomb's law, which is a very important topic, which states that this law was given by Coulomb and hence it is called as the Coulomb's law, which states that the force of attraction or repulsion between 2 point charges. When will they be attracted? There are 2 point charges. When they will attract? When these charges are unlike charges. And when they will repel? When these charges are like charges. Let there are 2 charges Q1, Q2 separated by r distance. So there will be force of attraction or repulsion between these 2 point charges depending upon the nature of the charges. Now according to Coulomb's law, this force is directly proportional to the product of the charges Q1 into Q2, and this force is inversely proportional to the square of the distance between them. F is inversely proportional to r square. So Coulomb's law states that the force of attraction or repulsion between 2 point charges is directly proportional to the product of the charges and inversely proportional to the square of the distance between them. Combining these two laws, what do we get? F is proportional to Q1 into Q2 upon r square. Equating it, whenever we remove the proportionality sign and equate it, a constant of proportionality comes. Let the constant of proportionality here is represented by K Q1 into Q2 upon r square. And this force is acting along the line joining the 2 charges. The direction of the force will be along the line joining the 2 charges. Now here K, this constant of proportionality is equal to 1 upon 4 pi epsilon naught. This epsilon naught, it's a Greek symbol, and this 0 what is written is called as the naught. So epsilon naught, here it is called as the permittivity of the free space, is called as permittivity of free space. That is, the charges are placed in free space. Now what is free space? You can consider vacuum. Vacuum is the free space. Or for air also the value is the same. So vacuum or air can be considered to be the free space. So these charges are placed in free space. Then the constant of proportionality is given by 1 upon 4 pi epsilon naught. Epsilon naught is called as the permittivity of free space. So hence Coulomb's law in mathematical form can be written as 1 upon 4 pi epsilon naught Q1 into Q2 upon r square. So this is the Coulomb's law in mathematical form. So force is given by 1 upon 4 pi epsilon naught. Okay, now the value of 1 upon 4 pi epsilon naught is constant, which is equal to 9 into 10 raised to the power 9 in SI units. Now what will be its SI unit? 1 upon 4 pi epsilon naught is equal to F into r square upon Q1 into Q2. The unit of force is Newton into r square, meter square upon Q1 into Q2, Coulomb into Coulomb, Coulomb square. So the value of constant of proportionality here is 9 into 10 raised to power 9 Newton meter square per Coulomb square. And from here if epsilon naught is calculated, epsilon naught will be equal to 1 upon 4 pi into 9 into 10 raised to the power 9. When this is solved, when this is calculated, it comes out to be 8.854 into 10 raised to the power minus 12. Now what will be its unit? Its unit will be inverse of this, because this is the unit of 1 by 4 pi epsilon naught. So epsilon naught, its unit will be Newton raised to the power minus 2 meter raised to the power minus 2 Coulomb square. So this is the value of epsilon naught. So when the charges are placed in free space, then the Coulomb's law is given by force is equal to 1 upon 4 pi epsilon naught Q1 into Q2 upon r square. Now if the charges are placed in some medium, like in a dielectric medium, dielectric means insulating medium. if the charges are placed in some dielectric medium, insulating medium, then the force between the charges will be given by 1 upon 4 pi epsilon Q1 into Q2 upon R square, where this epsilon is called as the permittivity of that dielectric medium, is called as the permittivity of medium. In whichever medium it is placed, permittivity means how much electric field lines it is permitting. So permittivity of that medium. And this permittivity of the medium is related to epsilon naught by epsilon is equal to K into epsilon naught. K is what? K here is called as the dielectric constant. K here is called as dielectric constant. There is a particular value, a constant value for any dielectric, for every dielectric medium, and this is the, for example, like for water it is 80, for mica it is 6. So epsilon is equal to K into epsilon naught. So from here the dielectric constant is equal to permittivity of the medium to the permittivity of free space, which is also called as the relative permittivity. As last year we have studied relative density, density of a substance to density of water. We call it as relative density. The same way, permittivity of the medium to the permittivity of free space, this is also called as the relative permittivity, which can be written as epsilon R. The subscript here is, so this is what? This is the relative permittivity. Okay, in terms of force, this is the force when the charges are placed in free space, like you can consider it to be here, when the charges are placed in medium, the same charges at the same distance. First they are placed in air, then they are placed. Dividing these two equations, what do we get? Okay, so here this can also be written as 1 upon 4 pi, here I am writing it as K epsilon naught. Why? Because the permittivity of the medium is K. Now dividing these two equations, what do we get? K is equal to force in air to the force in medium. So this can also be written as when the charges are placed, the force between the charges when placed in air to the force between the charges when placed in medium. So it can also be written as force in air to force in medium. Okay, now as this K or epsilon R is the ratio of the similar quantities, so it has got no unit, no dimensions. It is unitless, it is dimensionless. So this is all about Coulomb's law. Okay, now next we'll discuss the Coulomb's law in vector form. As we know that from the Coulomb's law we calculate the force, we determine the force, we find the formula of the force, which is given as 1 upon 4 pi epsilon naught Q1 into Q2 upon R square, and this force is a vector quantity. So here we'll write the force in vector form, that is the Coulomb's law in vector form. Let the same two charges Q1 and Q2 separated by R distance are placed in air. Let R12 is the unit vector giving the direction from the first to the second charge. R12 is the unit vector. What's a unit vector? Whose magnitude is unity, which is only giving the direction. So R12 unit vector, its magnitude is unity, but it is only giving the direction from the first to the second charge. Now for Q1 into Q2 greater than 0. Greater than 0 means it is positive. Positive means either both the charges are positive or both the charges are negative. That is why their product will be positive, greater than 0. So these two will repel each other. So how will be the force between them? The force will be repulsive. So the force on the first charge due to the second is as shown, and the force on the second charge due to the first is as shown over here. So F12 vector is the force on the Q1 charge exerted by Q2 charge, and F21 vector is force on the second charge due to the first charge. Now the force on the first charge due to the second charge. How can it be written? According to Coulomb's law, when they are placed in vacuum, 1 upon 4 pi epsilon naught q1 into q2 upon r square. This is the magnitude. Now only direction of this force is required. Here r12 is the unit vector from the first to the second charge. Now in the figure you can see that f12 is in the opposite direction. So which unit vector? r21 unit vector. Okay, the same way the force on the second charge due to the first is equal to 1 upon 4 pi epsilon naught. Magnitude is the same, q1 q2 upon r square, and what is this direction? r12 unit vector. Also last year we have studied it. Unit vector is vector divided by its magnitude. So if we write here r21 vector, then this, or you can say that this unit vector can be written as vector divided by its unit, by its magnitude. So r21 vector divided by one more magnitude, it will become r cube. So this can also be written as 1 upon 4 pi epsilon naught q1 into q2 upon r cube. It will become r21 vector we are writing divided by magnitude. So this will become r cube. The same way this can be written as 1 upon 4 pi epsilon naught q1 into q2 upon r cube r12 vector. Okay, so whenever we have to give only the direction, we'll write in the form of unit vector only. So when it is unit vector, denominator will be r square, vector sign, the denominator will be r cube. Okay, now we know that r12 unit vector is minus r21 unit vector. Both have unit magnitude, but only the direction is opposite. So from here we see that f12 vector is equal to minus f21 vector. That is, it obeys Newton's third law. The Coulomb force, the Coulomb's law obeys Newton's third law. So it is obeying Newton's third law. That is, both the charges are attracting or repelling each other with equal force, but in the opposite direction. So both are here, both are repelling each other with in opposite direction. Okay, so this is for q1 into q2 greater than 0. Now for q1 into q2 less than 0, that is the product of the two charges is negative. Less than 0 means it is negative. That is, one of the charge is positive and the other charge is negative. Now these two will attract each other. These two will attract each other. This will be the force on the first charge due to the second. This will be the force on the second charge due to the first. And the force between them will be attractive. The force between them will be attractive force. Okay, why? Because these are unlike charges. Okay, so how can f12 vector can be written? This is the magnitude, but what is the direction of f12 vector? This will be r12 unit vector, or here if we write it r12 vector, it will be divided by q. The same way f21 vector is along which direction? r21 unit vector, or if we write down r21 vector, then it will be, denominator will be r cube. Okay, so it is obeying Newton's third law. So this way we can write the Coulomb's law in vector form. Okay, next we'll study, or we'll see some similarities and differences between gravitational force and Coulomb force. This Coulomb force we also call it as electrostatic force. Okay, last year you have studied about gravitational force, Newton's law of gravitation, which states that any two bodies in the universe attract each other with a force which is directly proportional to product of their masses and inversely proportional to square of the distance between them. So on equating, the constant of proportionality is capital G, which we call it as universal gravitational constant, is directly proportional to m1 into m2 square of the distance between them, inversely proportional. And the electrostatic force, which is the Coulomb force, is equal to 1 upon 4 pi epsilon naught Q1 into Q2 upon R square. Okay, this is the electrostatic force given by Coulomb's law when the charges are placed in air. This is the gravitational force between any two bodies in the universe. Okay, the first similarity what we see is both are conservative forces. Both are conservative forces. Now what are conservative forces? If the work done by the forces depends only on the initial and the final position, not along the path which it is taken, such forces are called as conservative forces, and the net work done in a closed loop is equal to 0. So here the masses are conserved, here the charges are conserved. So both the forces are conservative forces. That is, the work done by them is not depending upon the path, it is only depending upon the initial and the final position. And also the net work done in a closed loop is equal to 0. Next is both obey inverse square law. Both obey inverse square law. That is, both are inversely proportional to square of the distance between them. So both are obeying the inverse square law. Now let's see some differences. Here, the gravitational force does not depend upon the medium in which the masses are placed, whereas the electrostatic force depends on the medium in which the charges are placed. So gravitational force does not depend upon the medium, whether the bodies are placed in air, water, vacuum, mica, wherever it is placed, the gravitational force will be the same, whereas does not depend upon medium, whereas electrostatic force depends on the medium in which it is placed. Depends on the medium. Why? Because when it is placed in a medium, the same charges at the same distance when placed in a medium, then the electrostatic force will be 1 upon 4 pi k epsilon naught Q1 Q2 upon R square. K is what? Dielectric constant. So it decreases, the force decreases when it is placed in a dielectric medium. For example, the value of dielectric constant of water is 80. So the electrostatic force will decrease by 80 times. It will become 1 by 80. The next is gravitational force is always attractive. How we define this? Gravitational force, any two bodies in the universe attract each other. So this is always attractive. Whereas the electrostatic force may be attractive or repulsive. May be attractive or repulsive. When is it attractive? When the charges are unlike charges. And when is it repulsive? When the charges are like charges. Also, last year we have studied that the gravitational force is the weakest force in nature. So the electrostatic force is much stronger than the gravitational force. For example, between an electron and a proton, it is found that the electrostatic force is approximately 10 raised to the power 39 times stronger than the gravitational force. The electrostatic force is 10 raised to the power 39 times stronger than the gravitational force between an electron and a proton. One example also we can consider, when the plastic comb rubbed with a dry hair is brought close to small pieces of paper, bits of paper, we see that the bits of paper are attracted towards the comb. The entire earth is exerting the gravitational force on these bits of papers, but against that gravitational force, the bits of paper will be attracted towards the comb. So the electrostatic force is much stronger than the gravitational force. So this is the comparison between the gravitational force and the electrostatic force. Next we'll study about superposition principle. If there are a number of point charges are there in the space, then on a particular charge, all these charges will be exerting a force. So the net force on that particular charge will be equal to the vector sum of all these forces. Let there are a number of charges, x-axis, y-axis, origin. Let q is the charge whose position vector is r vector. Position vector means how far is it from the origin and what is its direction from the origin. Let there are a number of charges. Here there is q1 charge whose position vector is r1 vector. Another charge, q2 charge whose position vector is r2 vector. Let us consider one more, q3 charge whose position vector is r3 vector. Now all these charges are exerting the force on q charge. So the net force, in which direction they are exerting? Along the line joining. This is q2 exerting f2, q3 exerting f3. So the total force on this q charge will be the vector sum of all these forces. Let the vector sum of all these forces is along this direction. So F vector is the resultant of F1, F2, F3 and so on. So hence it can be written as the total force on a given charge is equal to vector sum of all the forces exerted by the surrounding charges on a F3 vector and so on. If there are n number of charges, Fn vector. Now let's see what is F1 vector here equal to. We have to write in the vector form. Magnitude of F1 is 1 upon 4 pi epsilon naught, product of the charges, Q into Q1. Okay, now what will be this distance? This position vector is R, this position vector is R minus, this position vector is R1 vector. So this will be equal to R minus R1 vector. So here if we write R minus R1 vector, the denominator will be R minus R1 cube. Okay, vector denominator will be cube. What is this distance? R minus R1 vector. The same way F2 vector is equal to 1 upon 4 pi epsilon naught Q into Q2. This distance is equal to R minus R2 vector. So here if we write R minus R2 vector, then the denominator will be R minus R2 cube plus so on F3, Fn and so on. So the total force on any given charge is equal to the vector sum of all the forces exerted by the surrounding charges, and this force is calculated by Coulomb's law. This principle we call it as superposition principle. Okay, till now we have studied about point charges. Now let's study about continuous charge distribution. Okay, three types of continuous charge distribution here we'll study. The first one is linear charge distribution. That is, the charge is uniformly distributed along a line. Then such a distribution we call it as linear charge distribution. Charge is uniformly distributed along a line. This is called as linear charge distribution. For example, positive charge is uniformly distributed. So for this we calculate linear charge density. This is called as linear charge density. This linear charge density is given by charge per unit length. Let in a small length dl, dq charge is enclosed, then this is given by dq upon dl, charge per unit length. And its unit will be coulomb per meter. Its unit is coulomb per meter. The next is surface charge distribution. If the charge is uniformly distributed on a surface, on some area, then it is called as surface charge distribution. Let on a sheet a positive charge is uniformly distributed. So this is called as surface charge distribution, and for it we calculate surface charge density. And this surface charge density is represented by sigma, which is charge per unit area. Let in a small surface area ds, dq charge is enclosed. So sigma is equal to dq upon ds, charge per unit surface area. So in ds surface area, dq charge is enclosed and its unit will be coulomb per meter square. The third one is volume charge distribution. If the charge is uniformly distributed inside a volume, then such a distribution we call it as volume charge distribution. For example, inside a cuboid or inside a cube or inside a sphere, the charge is uniformly distributed, then such a distribution we call it as volume charge distribution. Let in small volume dV, dq charge is enclosed, then the volume charge density, which is denoted by rho, is given by charge per unit volume. In dV volume, how much charge is enclosed? dq. So the volume charge density is given by dq upon dV and its unit will be coulomb per meter cube. The unit of it will be coulomb per meter cube. So Coulomb's law holds for point charges. Okay, then linear charge distribution, charge uniformly distributed along line. Surface, if on the surface it is distributed, surface charge distribution, and if inside a volume the charge is uniformly distributed, volume charge density, and we calculate accordingly. Okay, now this is all in the first part. Let's discuss one question which had come in 2011 for 2 marks. Okay, it was asked to plot a graph between f and 1 by r square. How will be the graph between f and r square? F is inversely proportional to r square. So the graph between f and r square will be, or f and r will be, a curved line. But here it was asked to plot a graph f versus 1 by r square for two pair of charges, 1 microcoulomb, 2 microcoulomb, and the second pair is 2 microcoulomb minus 3 microcoulomb. Okay, now the graph between f and 1 by r square will be a straight line. The graph between f and 1 by r square. We are not plotting between f and r square or f and r. We are plotting between f and 1 by r square. It will be a straight line. For 1 and 2 microcoulomb, the force will be positive. It will be a straight line and the force will be positive. This is the positive force axis and this is the negative force axis. So how will be the graph between 1 and 2 microcoulomb? It will be a straight line. This is representing for 1 microcoulomb and 2 microcoulomb. For 2 microcoulomb and minus 3 microcoulomb, again the force versus 1 by r square is a straight line, but the force will be negative. So where will be the curve? It will be along the negative force axis. This is for 2 microcoulomb and minus 3 microcoulomb. Also you can see that the slope of this line for this pair will be greater than for this pair. Why? Because force is directly proportional to Q1 into Q2, 2 into 1, 2 units. Here 2 into minus 3, minus 6 units. Okay, so the force here will be, the slope of the line will be more as compared to this. Okay, that's all in the part 1. Part 2 will be shortly displayed. Okay, and if you like this video, please like and subscribe this video. Okay, thank you.